بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
What are you going to be when you grow up?
I want to be me. How can I be me? Where does my path lead? So many things are shaping me.
Shouldn't you be studying?
We need to do something about our youth.
Inshallah, we will be having a halaqah this Friday night about striving for the hereafter.
Canadians are ignoring the growing Muslim threat within our midst.
We want everyone to assimilate in our classrooms.
Why can't I be like everyone else?
You can really be at the top of your class.
What do I really believe?
Come on, man, let's just kick it. Can't you convince your parents?
We need more Muslim politicians.
That's not appropriate.
What am I meant to be? Why am I going to school?
The big fridge.
You have so many opportunities to excel. There are scholarships, chances for research, and getting published, institutional and corporate grants. You can make a name for yourself and have an impact on the world.
But is that really enough?
But it's so hard to explain. We have worked hard to get where we are. I know this society places a lot of value on how things look, and we need to fit in.
What if this is my last day?
What if everything in life helped us to remember this, that it could be my last day? What if what we believe and what we learn would be the same thing? What if our hands, our heads, and our hearts had the same purpose?
إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء.
Maybe I could be guided by a light in the darkness.
كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء.
Maybe I could be like a good tree that has solid roots. But I know that if the center is dead, the whole tree is weak.
So, what are we talking about?
Education is the discipline of the mind or character through study or instruction.
In recent decades, Muslim educators have attempted to Islamize education. Often schools use a contributive approach. Islam is sprinkled onto the curriculum by randomly adding ayahs from the Quran to science, studying the historical contributions of individual Muslims, and regarding them as distant heroes, or by simply celebrating Islamic holidays.
A second approach is additive. This approach adds substantial Islamic content and perspectives to the curriculum without really changing its foundational structure. Muslim schools around the world teach Islamic studies as a separate subject, and also add tidbits of Islam to the rest of the curriculum. In this approach, the Islamic content is certainly greater than the contributive approach, but Islam and its civilization remain a foreign element in a thoroughly secular curriculum. This amounts to teaching students to view Islam as something separate and disconnected from life.
When the basic nature and structure of the whole curriculum are derived from the Quranic worldview, students integrate what they believe and what they learn with how they live. This third approach is transformative in its essence, a process that makes the learner fully conscious of the purpose of life.
I think I can understand this better in metaphors. The contributive approach is like going to a restaurant for lunch and eating the regular food but spicing it with a bit of salt and pepper. The additive approach is like buying pre-processed food at the grocery store and taking the packages home to cook them there. The transformative approach is like picking fresh vegetables from my garden, cooking them in my kitchen, and really knowing what I am eating.
Transformative learning is beyond integration. It is Quranic in all aspects, from blueprint to foundation, to framework to building, from vision to standards, to curriculum, to daily classroom teaching, to evaluation. Transformative learning is value-based, purposeful, originates in the core, reflective, intergenerational, committed to community service, experiential, hands-on, self-initiated, and lifelong.
Transformative learning is the traditional way of learning in Islam, the approach to learning that binds the learner to the ultimate goal of life, continuous striving toward Allah. Unlike theoretical learning that imparts information, even knowledge, without affecting the inner core of the learner, this is a process of learning that leads to the rediscovery of our innate nature, fitra, upon which we have been created, transforming the way we live and the way we establish relationships with others. This inner harmony makes us active and constructive participants in society, leading to the transformation of the entire society.
It is a process that happens within the learner. Resources from the outside and the inner realm are received. They are synthesized, then are analyzed and applied to other situations, and that which is worthy is internalized in the transformative learning process.
Starting with early childhood education, MEF is publishing teacher handbooks, student texts, and supplementary resource materials, all integrating Islamic content in the process of transformative learning. MEF plans to, inshallah, systematically produce a complete program of studies.
When we take a cross-section of the curriculum cone, we see that the content at each grade level is thoroughly immersed in the study of the three realms from which the signs in the Quran are drawn: the cosmos, the human story, and the nafs.
سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق.
The Muslim Education Foundation is currently focusing on 4 interrelated programs.
So the question is, what makes curriculum Islamic?
It's neither the sprinkling of the Quranic ayahs nor the religious explanations, but the subtle incorporation of the Quranic worldview in the conceptual design of the curriculum material and its delivery.
Can you give us an example?
Let us take the simple case of a lesson on the structure of the water molecule in a high school chemistry textbook. What would be a distinctive Islamic element in teaching this lesson? How would an Islamic school teach Muslim students about the structure of the water molecule in a manner that is different from that of the public school system?
That's a good example, considering that water is the most important ingredient of life. In our class, the teacher gave us the ayah from the Quran that says, Allah has created every living thing out of water.
But how would that make this lesson Islamic?
Water is made up of 2 atoms of hydrogen attached to 1 atom of oxygen at a precise angle of 104.5 degrees. This is explained in all chemistry textbooks on the basis of the electronic structure of oxygen and hydrogen bonding. Crystallographic data is then used to show that in addition to regular covalent bonds, there are weak hydrogen bonds between hydrogen and oxygen atoms that give water its distinct physical properties, such as its freezing and melting points. Water boils at 100 degrees and freezes at 0. When it freezes and turns into ice, it is less dense than its liquid form. Hence, ice floats on water.
But why does ice float on water?
Because it's less dense than water.
But why is it less dense than water?
My textbook does not really explain this. It merely refers to this quality of water as its property.
As if this is enough explanation for one of the most important phenomena on Earth. Imagine, if ice did not float on water, oceans would freeze solid in winter, and no marine life would be possible. Think of the Arctic Ocean, which has millions of life cycles beneath its frozen crust. If ice didn't float, if it sank, the whole life cycle would cease to exist.
So, why does ice float on water?
Because the water molecules do not pack densely when water freezes. They do not pack densely because the two hydrogen atoms are sticking out, like elbows, at 104.5 degrees. This is why ice is less dense than water, and hence it floats. But why do these atoms join at this precise angle? Why is there this unique weak hydrogen bonding in water? A lesson on the structure of the water molecule in an Islamic textbook inspires students to reflect on these questions. Why does the hydrogen atom, the simplest of all atoms, have this unique ability to make hydrogen bonds in the first place? It leads them to reflect on the teleological aspects of this design, and it then adds a historical context to the whole unit.
Did you know that in the 11th century, scientists Ibn Sina and Abu Rayhan al-Bayruni, living hundreds of miles apart, were exchanging correspondence on this very issue? The standard chemistry textbook, with all its missing elements, deprives Muslim students the opportunity to slowly and naturally root their spiritual, intellectual, and emotional beings in various dimensions of the Islamic tradition.
This is just one of countless examples that can be produced in all branches of knowledge. The purpose of a distinctively Islamic curricula is to incorporate all aspects of the vision of Islam into the very texts that students use in a manner that is subtle, elegant, reflective, and rooted in solid scholarship.
The need to include Islamic perspectives in the core texts of social studies, history, and language arts is even greater as these subjects play a decisive role in shaping children's worldview. The Eurocentric view of history, for instance, depicts the colonization of the world by the European powers as a blessing for those backward societies, often making heroes of men like Napoleon Bonaparte, who left for Egypt on May 19, 1798, with a massive French fleet of 400 ships, bringing 36,000 soldiers. The French occupation of Egypt ushered in a new era in the relationship between Europe and Muslims. In history textbooks, even such an important episode finds no mention of the events from the perspective of the occupied and the conquered, even though we do possess a first-hand account of the French occupation written by one of the last great Muslim historians who wrote in the grand tradition of Al-Tabari and Ibn Khaldun, Abdurrahman al-Jabarti. Imagine the impact on young minds if they were exposed to this testimony of French occupation of Egypt by al-Jabarti. It tells us, among other things, how Napoleon issued a proclamation claiming that he had come to Egypt to bring freedom and liberty to Egyptians, how he had all but announced his conversion to Islam, and how the French burnt villages, how they slaughtered men and women and children when resistance broke out. The late Edward Said called Napoleon's occupation of Egypt an episode that gave birth to the entire modern experience of the Orient as interpreted from within the universe of discourse founded by Napoleon in Egypt. This is just one example of a large body of solid scholarly texts that will become an integral part of the new educational resources.
The Muslim Education Foundation sees the need for new educational materials that nurture transformative learning and are designed to help students exceed the current standards and outcomes in schools.
But why is there a need to supplement the training teachers already have?
The delivery of such a curriculum is as important as its content. The teacher is the one who shapes the atmosphere and spirit of learning in the classroom. The purpose of a training program is to help the teacher actually facilitate and conduct this process of transformative learning in the classroom. Essentially, the teacher needs to become filled with the spirit of transformative learning before the students can fully benefit in the learning environment.
For example, in the kindergarten classroom, the teacher designs the individual classroom so that exploration and discovery naturally lead to the internalization of the consciousness of Allah. Children recognize the created patterns, the pairs, and the cycles that are so wondrous in nature. And knowing that these are all signs that point to the Creator makes learning meaningful and the experiences bigger than themselves.
Teachers need to critically examine the materials that are currently being used to see if they are helping or hindering the learning. Rubrics can be used to help evaluate the worth and merits of materials. Muslim teachers from all around the world can network through the Muslim Teachers Association. This organization becomes a platform for Muslim educators to deal with major issues in education.
We envision a family of institutions and educators committed to a common cause and goal, the Nasr Network of Schools and Educators. Its name is derived from the Quranic term Nasr, to help, and this umbrella organization can pool human and material resources to foster international cooperation among participating schools in the vital areas of Islamic curriculum, teacher training, and exchanges of information and experiences.